it is finally time to unveil my custom SpeedDuel set for Waking the Dragons. And yeah, it took a bit longer than I originally expected, but I'm actually pretty proud with the way the set ended up coming out. But before I get into breaking down all the decks, skills, etc, I did want to go ahead and clarify a few things regarding the set and how I went about in developing each of these sets. So as usual, I tried my best to make these sets feel as believable as possible if Konami were to have made them IRL. That means that I went ahead and took inspiration from the anime, made sure that I made a few references to the anime with some of the cards and or skills that each of the characters ended up receiving. On that note, some of the characters were a bit more difficult to work with just because some of these characters, spoiler alert, Valon, Alistair, and Dartz have decks that don't actually exist in the TCG like as a whole. Most of their cards are just not real. So I had to take some creative liberty with some of these character decks. Also, for the most part, I think I did a pretty decent job with each of these character decks to make them feel as balanced against each other as possible. So realistically, if you were to recreate these yourself, all these decks should feel fairly even against each other. So it should be a fairly fun experience if you duel with these. On that note, I'm going to be showing you at the end of the video how you can go ahead and recreate these cards and or find them if you decide to use them. Now that I've got all that out of the way, I would like to say that if you do end up enjoying today's video and would like to support the channel, then I would really appreciate if you could leave a like and subscribe. This took a much longer time than I originally thought, so I would really appreciate any love and support you guys can show the video. All right, all that being done, let's get started now. Alright, and with the very first character we're going to be starting with is Yugi. And Yugi was a bit of an interesting character to work with just because in the Waking the Dragons arc, he had the Gurimo brothers be a really big part of the deck. Not only that, but he also had the Face Knight archetype available, and if you take into account the fact that Tamiya's only works with Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, the deck feels like it has no level of synergy whatsoever. So I had to really think about how exactly I was going to go and make this strategy actually work, and I'm gonna admit it, the skill is doing a bit of the heavy lifting here. Alright, let's take a quick look. Okay then, so here we have Yugi's deck. And as you can see, it's a 22 card main deck. Because of the release of Battle City Finals, it pretty much set the precedent that you can go all the way up to 24 cards per character deck if you really wanted to. And I took a little bit of creative liberty with some of these decks. I didn't go too crazy, but this is what we have for Yugi. At first glance, you can see, yeah, that's a lot of Gurimo monsters. And for the most part, this deck looks a bit all over the place. But trust the process. The skills do make this deck actually work. With that being said, let's actually take a quick look at both the skills for the deck, and we'll begin with the primary skill. The first skill is Tamiya's the Miraculous, and it reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of these skills. Special summon one Dark Magician monster from your hand by shuffling one Gurimo monster from your graveyard into your deck. Skill number 2, discard one card, then add the Aya Tamiya's from your deck to your hand. This skill can only be used twice per duel. And finally, skill number 3, once per duel, shuffle one Aya Tamiya's from your graveyard into the deck, then draw one card. As a whole, I feel like all these effects are fairly simple. We've already gotten a skill that allows you to special summon Dark Magician, so having another skill that allows you to do that doesn't seem like too much of a stretch, especially because we are tying it to a whole different deck in order to make that happen. Additionally, part of the reason why we have the effect to search out Tamiya's for twice per duel is for the very fact that we do have 2 targets for that, so I feel like anyone that plays this deck would like the possibility of being able to summon out both their fusion monsters without having to play multiple copies of Tamiya's. That way it still has an anime feel to it. As a whole, I feel like this skill does everything it needs the deck to work well, and it synergizes the Gurimos with the Dark Magician monsters. And I feel like, and I liked it. I was a big fan of it. Alright, let's take a look at the second skill now. Enchanting Gurimos. This skill reads, once per turn, if you took battle damage this turn, you can send one Gurimo monster from your deck to the graveyard. Special summon one Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your hand or deck. And number 2, Kuriba, Kuribi, Kuribu, and Kuribe are all treated as Kuribo while face up on the field. And this skill is a bit more tied to the Gurimo monsters and making them feel a bit more playable as a deck. Additionally, I feel like the fact that we are making Dark Magician be a part of the deck works here as well, just because you are tying it so much to the Gurimo monsters. I don't think it could could get abused. And additionally, the fact that all the Kaiba brothers are treated as Kaiba on the field means that cards like Multiply and Detonate work well with them and actually gives you a reason to play them and have them face up on the field. And I feel like that kind of synergy is really nice. Alright, now that we have the skills understood and we got an understanding what the deck is trying to do, let's take a look at the deck in itself. So starting off, we have DM and DM Girl. Obviously enough, we need these cards for the Tamias, so that's self-explanatory. Which, speaking of, we have Tamias the United Dragon. And this is one of the newer pieces of legacy support for Dark Magician / Tamias. But the thing is, it's not that broken of a card. In my opinion, it's not much better than the Joker's Knight, which is able to special summon itself by sending a material from the deck to the graveyard. But Tamias has the opposite effect, where it's able to special summon itself by discarding a spell caster and or sending a spell trap card that mentions Dark Magician in its text to the graveyard in order to summon it out. But the coolest thing about Tamias is the fact that on field, he's able to facilitate the fusion summon to summon out one of these two cards, because the cool thing about these ones specifically is the fact that they can be summoned normally. The other legendary dragon fusions can't. And that's pretty much the wrap up of the Dark Magician engine. A very small, but I feel like it's effective. Moving on to the Karibos now. The first one up is Magic Karibo, which is the bridge that connects these two decks together, and it is actually searchable via the Karibo brothers. Alright, after that we have the 5 Karibo brothers with Karibo, Kariba, Karibi, Karibe, and Karibu. All these cards have their own unique effects. Karibo is able to negate any battle damage. Kariba allows you to special summon another Karibo monster when a Karibo is destroyed. Karibi allows you to add a Karibo spell or trap card. Karibe allows you to boost up a Karibo monster on the field by 1500, which is kind of cool and really helps with Karibabylon. But additionally, it allows you to special summon out Karibandit, which is kind of neat. And finally, Karibu has the effect to discard himself to search out any Karibo monster. So that's the whole Karibo brother engine. For the most part, they are a little bit underwhelming. Some of them are a bit more annoying than others, but they get the job done. Moving on, we have Karibabylon, which is like the boss monster of Karibos. It has a fairly easy summoning condition where you just have to have more monsters in your graveyard than your opponent. And if you're playing the Karibo brothers, you'll probably have that condition met fairly easily. So summoning it out shouldn't be too big of an issue. And last one in the Karibo brothers, or the Karibo family, I guess, is Karibandit, which is a really cool card that would probably just see generic play. Very powerful effect, sets up the graveyard really effectively, and I was a bit iffy on adding it, but you know what, it was named and like, might as well, we'll give it a go. Plus, Konami's released crazy cards in the past too, so why not? The last card for the Karibos is Skilled Brown Magician, which it's a skilled magician card. We've gone all of them with the exception of him, and he's not that impressive. So it's a cool card, but nothing too crazy. And the last monster here is Breaker the Magical Warrior, which is just a really good body for the deck, and it's super iconic for the fact that it was the card that Yugi used against Weevil when he did the whole little monster cardo moment. And yeah, that's the monster lineup. Pretty decent overall, but give me your thoughts. Alright, let's move on to the spell and trap cards now, and the first one is a card that I was super excited to add in, that being Bond between teacher and student. It allows you to establish both Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl while you control Dark Magician, and also allows you to set a spell card, a dedicated spell card from your deck to the field. The one that I ended up choosing for this is Dark Magic Twin Burst. It just feels very anime-esque. Of course, there was other options like Dark Magic Attack, Dark Burning, and then there's like the combination one. Those seemed okay. The twin one built a bit too much just because like it nukes the field, but give me your thoughts. All right, moving on to the other ones, we have Creature Swap because we have so many Karibo monsters, Detonate, Monster Reborn, and finally Soul Servant. This one is a bit of a crazy one to add into the deck, but stick with me. So my reasoning for this is that Soul Servant isn't as crazy as you might think, just because of the fact that upon activation, all it does is stack a card on top of your deck. So it pretty much allows you to top deck any Dark Magician card you want. In the graveyard, you can banish it to draw up to the number of Dark Magician Girl, and or other monsters in the field and or graveyard. In SpeedDuels, the best you're ever going to get is a draw 2, which is still very good, but it does take a lot of setup, and because we don't have a bunch of the other crazy Dark Magician cards, I feel like it's more than fair. Finally, we have Dust Tornado for back row, and Black Illusion as like a cool little way to protect your Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl. And of course, the Tamias. But yeah, in the comments section below, give me your thoughts. Did you like Yugi's deck? Would you build it yourself? And all that jazz. Now that we're done with Yugi, let's move on to the other legendary knights with Joey. Alright then, so up next we have Joey, and Joey was a really interesting character to work with just because he had a lot going on during this arc, if you remember. In this arc, he had summoned out the Guilford Sword Master, he had summoned out the Lord of Red, he had armor stuff going on, he had a whole lot of stuff going on in this arc. One of the big things was Red Ice Black Dragon, so that's kind of the path I ended up taking with this deck. It was a bit difficult to make it work just because Joey, for the most part, has gotten so much of his crap printed already in SpeedDuel, so adding new cards without getting into the more broken stuff was a bit more challenging than I had expected. But check it out, this is what I ended up doing for Joey. Alright then, so here it is. Before we go ahead and break the deck down in itself, let's go ahead and take a quick look at each of the skills for Joey. So first skill up is the main skill, Hermos and the Knight of Devastation, which reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Reveal one Guilford the Sword Master in your hand and place it at the bottom of the deck. Then draw one card. Second skill reads, once per duel, you can discard one card to special summon one Guilford the Sword Master from your deck by tributing one face-up Guilford monster from your field. This is treated as being summoned by the effect of Release Restraint. And finally, skill number 3. Once per turn, you can discard one card, then add one Fang of Critias from your deck or graveyard to your hand. This skill can only be used twice per duel. So yeah, there's a lot going on with this skill in itself, and the main idea that I wanted to go ahead and get across with this deck specifically is trying to make Guilford the Sword Master an actual playable card. Just because I really like this card. It's a really cool card that Konami failed to give a proper deck to in SpeedDuels. And because this card was one of the cards that Joey summoned in his duel, and he also equipped it with the Red Ice Black Dragon Sword, I kind of wanted to go ahead and highlight that in a skill for his deck. The fact that this deck needs not only Guilford the Iron Knight and a dedicated spell card to do all this jazz, I felt like, what if we just bypass that and take a path that Konami's used a lot with some of the skills to make fusion summoning a lot easier, but for Guilford himself. And I kind of like the way it ended up coming out, but give me your thoughts. Now let's go over the second skill. So the second skill for Joey is Old Faithful Red Ice, and it reads, if only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon one Red Ice Black Dragon from your hand. Once per turn during your main phase, while you control Red Ice Black Dragon, you can activate one of these skills. Add one the Claw Hermos from your deck or graveyard to your hand, or the second effect, once per duel, you can discard one spell, then add one ritual monster or ritual spell that mentions Red Ice from your deck to your hand. And as you can see, this is a fairly simple skill that tries to making the card Lord of Red a bit easier to summon. The one thing is, I didn't want to overtune this skill too much, just for the very fact that Lord of Red is an incredibly powerful monster, and even just adding it to the deck felt a bit too much in my opinion, just because it's an extremely powerful card. And I feel like in SpeedDuels, if it were easy to play, it would be like Cyber Angels 2.0 but stronger. So that's part of the reason why I was a bit hesitant with it. So as a whole, I'm pretty okay with this skill, but give me your thoughts. Alright, so both skills are done and over with. Now let's move on to the actual deck in itself. As I mentioned, the first monster up is a Lord of Red. This card was really important during the duel against Valon, and I kind of wanted to go ahead and represent this card as well here. It's a super iconic Joey card that doesn't see play any other time, I believe, so I figured that this would be the best moment to represent this card in the deck. Moving on, we have some Red Ice Legacy support that is already available in SpeedDuels, with the Red Ice Black Dragon, of course, Red Ice Baby Dragon, the Black Metal Dragon, and Guilford the Red Ice Iron Knight, which we'll talk about more in a second. The two new additions are the Black Stone of Legend and Red Ice Retro Dragon. These two cards are really good. Retro is a bit more situational, just for the fact that it has a cool effect where it's able to special summon stuff that gets destroyed, but it's do a lot of stuff in order to make it happen. So cool card, nice stats, and it's just another Red Ice name, so I like it a lot. The thing is, the Blackstone Legends, however, is another one of those cards where it's a bit scary, just because you can normal summon this card, special summon something like the Red Ice Baby Dragon or Red Ice Black Dragon if you really wanted to. It is a great boost to the consistency of the deck, so definitely something that would be a bit finicky to add to the game, but I don't know, I feel like Red Ice is weak enough to where we could give it a bit of help, but give me your thoughts. Now for Guilford the Red Ice Iron Knight and Guilford the Iron Knight. These two cards are very important, obviously enough, for the skill that we talked about, Hermos and the Knight of Devastation. Just the fact that we have two different Gilfreys in the deck in order to make Gilfrey the Swordmaster a bit easier to summon. I feel like is very fitting, and they both fit Joey really well. Continuing on, we have some monsters specifically for Hermos with the addition of Maximum 6, the Copycat, and finally the Fiend Mega Saber in order to be fusion materials for these cards right here. Continuing on to the other spell cards, we have Dangerous Machine Type 6. Really weird that we never got this card, but it's a Joey card, so we went ahead and added it in. Red Eye's Insight is another piece of legacy support for the Red Eye strategy, and I feel like this version of the deck would make Red Eyes incredibly playable in speed duels, and I think that's kind of cool. Continuing on, we have the Red Eye Transmigration for the Lord of Red, Rhoda for the Gilfreys, and that's pretty much all the spells. Onto the trap cards, we have Grave Robber, Nutrient Z, Return of the Red Eyes, and finally Trap Hole. Grave Robber, I've mentioned this multiple times, it is a crime Konami never printed this card for Joey in any of his decks, so we're adding it here. Nutrient Z is another really interesting card for Joey that just kind of fits in any deck, and it's kind of cool. We have Trap Hole. Joey is for some reason associated with like all the Trap Holes, so let's give him the regular one as well. And finally, the Return of the Red Eyes. Alright, so Return of the Red Eyes is a really cool piece of legacy support for Red Eyes, just for the very fact that this card only special summons vanillas from the graveyard, so typically you're only special summoning Red Eyes Black Dragon with this effect, and at that, it's tied to the fact that you have to control a Red Eyes monster on the field to activate it. So for that very reason, I feel like this card is completely fair, so because of that, I feel like it should be fine, but I don't know. I could be wrong. And of course, finally, we have the Cloud Hermos, just because it's a legendary Dragons deck. But yeah, that's Joey. It's a hybrid deck with Lord of Red and Gilfrey the Swordmaster as the boss monsters. But I thought it came out pretty decently. Alright, now that we are done with Joey, let's move on to the final character in the Legendary Heroes with Kaiba. Alright then, so Kaiba is a really interesting character when it comes to Waking the Dragons, or honestly in any arc regarding him, just for the very fact that unlike Yugi, he only has 2 strategies associated with him alongside a bunch of just generic crap. He has the Blue Eye strategy, of course, obviously enough, and the XYZ stuff. And both those decks have been kind of just been explored already in SpeedDuel, so making something fresh and unique gets a little bit more difficult just because we don't have other archetypes to explore. And additionally, with the Blue Eye strategy, you have so much of it associated with synchros that adding in legacy support gets a bit difficult, and some of it's very overtuned, and there's that as well. But I did the best I could with what I thought could be an interesting deck for him. So let's check it out. Alright then, so here we have Kaiba's deck, and as you can see, it is very dragon centric, but trust the process. I tried to find a way to make all this stuff work together and still incorporate all the trap cards, and you'll see that once we go ahead and cover all the skills. Let's go ahead and begin with the main skill of the deck, that being Prettiest the Entrapper. And it reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of these skills. Special summon 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand and or graveyard by tributing 1 trap card from your field. Alright, skill number 2, discard 1 card, then add 1 The Fang of Critias from your deck or graveyard to your hand. This skill can only be used twice per duel. And finally, skill number 3, then 1 face-up dragon monster you control to the graveyard, then set 1 trap card from your graveyard to your field. This skill can only be used twice per duel. So overall, I tried finding a way to go ahead and tie the dragon deck alongside Critias as a way to go ahead and make them synergize really well. This way you're still able to activate those trap cards that you use throughout the duel by tributing one of your dragon monsters in order to go ahead and like still get the value of activating the trap card and using it for a material later on during the duel. And I feel like that kind of synergy is really cool. It does get the job done, at least when me and Bear were testing it out, but give me your thoughts in the comment section below. As for the second skill, the Unstoppable Force of Blue Eyes. Alright, this skill reads, activate this skill during your main phase while you control Blue Eyes White Dragon. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Skill number 1. Once per duel, discard 1 card to fusion summon 1 Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon using 1 monster from your field, 1 monster from your hand, and the last monster from your deck as materials. Any battle damage your opponent takes from that fusion monster is halved. Skill number 2. Tribute 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon, then target 1 card on the field, destroy that target. This skill can only be used twice per duel. I like the fact that we went ahead and tied this also to the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, trying to make it somewhat easier to summon. Getting Blue Eyes to your hand isn't the hardest thing in the world just because we do have Melody in the deck. We have ways to bring out Blue Eyes, so I feel like as a whole, this skill should work really well. And I'm just now realizing I forgot to put Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in the deck. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So we have a way to doing all this, and I ended up really liking the way the deck ended up coming out. Now let's go ahead and talk about the actual breakdown of all the cards in this strategy. So starting off, we have of course triple copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon. We saw this already in Battle City Finals, so no need for explanation there. Next card up is a brand new one, that being Dictator of D. And this card is pretty great just because it specifically works with Blue Eyes White Dragon, pretty much allowing you to special summon this guy, setting up the graveyard with Blue Eyes, and it can even establish a Blue Eyes on field. So I feel like as a whole, this card works great here. Moving on, we just have some generic dragon stuff like Alexandrite Dragon. I don't believe Kaiba ever played this card, but it just feels Kaiba-esque. We have Kaiser Glider, we have Different Dimension Dragon, Rare Metal Dragon, Axe Dragon Newt, Cave Dragon, and finally Spear Dragon. Again, we just got some meaty big boy dragons in the deck just to go ahead and give that idea of Kaiba, and just resonated really well throughout the strategy. But don't worry, we do have ways to summon out some of these guys that are a bit more difficult. Next up, we have a giant wing beat of a dragon, just because we have Blue Eyes in the deck. This card goes kind of crazy. We have Dragon Revival Rhapsody. In this version of the deck, it actually works much better just because you are able to set up the graveyard, and Dictator D fits the bill for the activation. Next up, we have Dragon Shrine. Again, we don't typically need Blue Eyes in the graveyard, in the hand, so being able to set them to the grave is really useful. Melody to search out the Blue Eyes, which helps you with the Dictator D and or the other skill. And yeah, that's the spell lineup. Moving on to the trap cards, we have Attack Guidance Armor. I think this card is fair just because Sakuretsu Armor is already in the game. Cloning is a really interesting one, and I believe we have a comp to it because there's a Copy Knight, which is similar to that, so I feel like this works here as well. Crush Card Virus, because we kind of need this. Radiant Mirror Force is kind of a cool one here, just for the fact that one of the cards that Kaiba did have was Mirror Force Dragon, but spoiler alert, we didn't add that to the deck just because it's way too strong. But I still kind of wanted to go ahead and demonstrate Mirror Force in this deck. So we have Radiant Mirror Force, which is it is Mirror Force, but it is only when your opponent controls 3 or more attack with your monsters. So kind of hard to pull it off. Finally, we have Tyrant Wing and a Loop of Destruction as other cards for our Critias. Going over the actual legendary dragons themselves, we have Tyrant Burst Dragon, Destruction Dragon, and finally Doom Virus Dragon. Out of the other ones, I felt like they were a bit too strong, but I feel like these 3 right here fit the bill really well. So give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Alright then, so now that we're done with all the pro tags of the set, let's move on to the bad guys. And first character up for this is going to be none other than Gurimo, or Gurimo. I don't actually know how to say his name. And if you have no idea who he is, I cannot blame you, because I completely forgot this character even existed until my comment section let me know about him. And yeah, interesting character. Like, he is so fodder, but actually he kind of has an interesting strategy going on for him. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at him. Alright then, so here it is, and yeah, if you weren't familiar, this is the guy. Yeah, so I completely forgot this guy even existed, just because he gets dealt with so quickly during this arc that he's like almost like a fading memory. But nevertheless, he did have kind of an interesting strategy going on with him. Let's go ahead and break it down real quick. So the main skill for the deck is Servant of the Orichalcos, and it reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills, but each can only be used once per duel. Skill number 1. Discard up to 3 cards, special summon Bronze Knight tokens, Warrior Earth level 1, attack 500, defense 500, in a face-up attack position for each card you discarded. You can't summon for the rest of this turn except Obelisk the Tormentor. Skill number 2, discard 1 card, then add the Seal of Orichalcos from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And yeah, essentially, if you remember this arc whatsoever, one of the cards that he does end up activating is Bronze Knight, which allows him to summon as many tokens as he wanted based on the cards he discarded, and he used all those monsters for the summon of Obelisk to Tormentor, and I wanted to have a way to go ahead and reflect that into SpeedDuels as well. Having the fact that you gotta discard that many cards, tying to the fact that you can only summon Obelisk to Tormentor the turn you activate this, I feel like it's pretty fair in the fact that we aren't able to search him out. For that very fact, I feel like it should be fine in SpeedDuels. Granted, when I was testing this out with Bear, for some reason he was just had the God Hand every single time where he was able to do it immediately, which was kind of BS. Bear, I hate you, buddy. Nevertheless, I think for the most part it is a fair skill. And then we have the default add the Seal of Orichalcos to your hand, skill that you're going to be very familiar with moving forward with the rest of the skills. But as a whole, I like the way this ended up coming out. We have an anime reference right here, and we went ahead and tied it to Obelisk Tormentor. He actually got a good skill this time, unlike Kaiba's skill in Battle City Finals. You know, slight shade to Konami, but okay, now for the second skill. The second skill is going to be a generic skill for like any character, but still going to be tied to him, and it is the Seal of Orichalcos, which reads, at the start of the duel, place this card in the field spell zone and flip it. You draw 1 less card at the beginning of the duel. Alright, and the effects of this skill are pretty much the effects of the Seal of Recalcos. All monsters you control gain 500 attack points, but the kicker about the skill is the fact that this skill is unaffected by your opponent's activated card effects, meaning that once it's face up on the field, your opponent's gonna have a very hard time dealing with it. I feel like as a default skill, this card goes pretty hard. It's pretty dang good, being able to give every monster you control a 500 attack flat boost, in the fact that it remains on field, I feel like is really good, and I feel like tying it to the fact that you draw one less card makes it very fair. But give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Alright then, so now that we have both skills under wrap, let's go ahead and talk about the deck in itself. The first few monsters you'll see, Obelisk, Warrior Digrapher, Makiora, Captain Moronga Captain, and finally Shadow Tamer, were all cards that he played in his deck against Yugi. And one thing you'll notice is the fact that we have a few Earth Warrior monsters, quite a few of them actually, and one Makiora. But essentially what I ended up doing with him is like, I kind of just took a loose inspiration from all these cards and kind of kept the vibe going. The next monster up is Field Commander Raz. I feel like he fits the vibe of these cards, so we have him here, and it's a pretty decent warrior monster. We have Throw Stone Unit, which is a pretty cool card as well. We then have Rookie Warrior Lady. I actually really like this card because it is a hand trap specifically for warrior monsters, where essentially it almost behaves like a wall disruption, but for warriors, and it's really cool. A bit strong, but I feel like if we put this card to like 1 or something in speed duels, it could be fair, but a really fun card. Next up, we have Hunter with 7 weapons. I was surprised this card actually didn't exist already in SpeedDuel, so we have it here. We have DD Survivor because we needed at least one other warrior monster, and again, this I believe is just Marooning Captain, so it fit the bill. And finally, DD Assailant. We already have DD Warrior Lady and DD Warrior, so why not add Assailant as well? Really good card though. Moving on to the spell cards, we have the A-Force. We knew he had this card, Monster Reborn, another card that he had access to, and again, at this point, fuck it, who cares? Let's add it to these character decks. Rhoda, because it's a warrior deck, and the Warrior Returning to Life, same idea. An interesting card though is Double Cyclone, just for the very fact that the Seal of Recalcos once per turn can't be destroyed by card effect, so you can activate the Double Cyclone pretty safely and pretty much get a free pop, so that's kind of cool. And finally, we have Reinforcement of the Army Troops, which allows you to special summon a warrior monster from your hand once per turn. All these cards kind of fit the idea of like you're trying to swarm your field with warriors in order to facilitate the summon of Obelisk, and I feel like it does it pretty well, at least for being like a generic warrior deck. Now for the trap cards, we have Hidden Soldier. He had this in the deck. Unfortunately, I went ahead and added it in. Next up, we have Expendable Die, which is a really cool card that kind of reminds me of Fish Step Charge, but for warrior monsters specifically. And then last card in the deck is Copy Knight, to go ahead and reflect, because he had 2 different Knight cards. He had like Bronze Knight and like, oh my god, like Defense Knight? I forgot what the other card was, but he had these kind of cards, and this still fits the warrior theming and his character theming, so it fit the deck really well. And lastly, yeah, the Seal of Recalcos. But surprisingly enough, I was pretty happy with the way his deck ended up coming out. It was a lot more interesting than I had thought. At first, I thought it was going to come out to similar quality of like Rare Hunter, but actually his deck is pretty fun. But give me your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, so that's pretty much done with Gurimo. Now next up we have Raphael. And honestly, after Raphael, it gets very difficult to go ahead and construct the decks for each of these characters. At the bare minimum, with Gurimo and Raphael, we had a starting point, and with Raphael, of course, we do have the Guardian strategy, which had its own challenging aspects to it, but building the deck wasn't that part of it. But with that being said, let's dive in and take a look at what I ended up doing for him. Okay, so here we have Raphael's deck, and as I mentioned, the hard part about building his deck was the fact that the Guardian monsters don't really work without their equipped spells, so I had to find a way to bypass that aspect of them without absolutely breaking the archetype. But besides that, constructing the deck was fairly easy, and there was one thing that I kind of want to add in, but for the sake of the fact that there's like endless loops with it, I didn't feel too comfortable doing it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the 2 skills that we made for Raphael himself. So here is the main skill, Guardian Seal, and it reads, while the Seal of Recalcos is face up on the field, Guardian monsters can be summoned without their equipped spell. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Reveal 1 level 5 or lower Guardian monster in your hand. Then add 1 equipped spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand whose name is mentioned on that monster. This skill can only be used twice per duel. Skill number 2, once per duel, discard 1 card, then add the Seal of Recalcos from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Fairly standard effect for Raphael. I like the fact that we tied the fact that these cards can be summoned to the field with the Silver Orichalcos face up the field. We have a way to search out the field of Orichalcos. And finally, giving the deck some level of consistency by revealing one of the monsters in your hand to search out a dedicated equip spell that names them by name. I think that little synergy is really cool, tying the fact that it can only be activated twice per duel, so you can't overtly abuse the effect. Alright, as for the skill number 2. The second skill is called Guardian's Protection, and it reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can normal summon one Guardian monster without their equipped spell. Second effect, once per turn while you control the Seal of Orichalcos, you can discard one card, then add one Guardian monster from your deck to your hand, and add one equipped spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand whose name is mentioned on that monster. Third effect, you can't normal summon or set non-Guardian monsters. I tried as hard as possible to go ahead and make these cards playable without outright breaking like the skill or like the archetype in any way, or any shenanigans that feel like it breaks the immersion of the deck. And I think this skill does it very well. The fact that you can only summon out Guardian monsters seems fair to me. And finally, I do think that the search effect, while very strong, is extremely fair for the very fact that you need to have the face up Orichalcos on the field in order to use this effect. And this skill does not search it out, so you kind of have to draw into it naturally. But the deck still functions even without the Seal of Orichalcos. But in the comments section below, give me your thoughts on both the skills. I really like the way both of them ended up coming out, and they were both incredibly fun to play with. Now for the deck in itself. Starting out, we have Guardian Eatos, Guardian Death Scythe, Guardian Grower. We have Guardian Trice, Seal, Kaiest, Bao, and Elma. These are all the Guardian monsters. For the most part, they're all fine. The one that makes me the most nervous is probably Eatos, just for the very fact that she has the easiest summoning condition in the game, with just having no monsters. Like, opening duel, you can just summon out this monster and it's huge. So that makes me a bit nervous about this card. I would say that if this card were to come to SpeedDuels, it would probably have to get limited or restricted in some way, shape, or form to prevent it from being outright too broken. Similar to like a Sidra, but like on steroids. This card's incredible. After that, I don't think I have any problem with any other of the other Guardian monsters. CL has a really good effect, but again, like I think it's okay just because we're tying it to the equip spells. But yeah, besides that, all the other Guardian monsters are pretty okay. Now for the other monsters, we have a Fairy Guardian, and finally we have Arsenal Summoner. And both these cards are just supposed to go ahead and assist with the strategy in itself, and I feel like they are very fitting for the strategy. Alright, moving on to the equipped spells, we have the Eatos one, Dreadsights one, Growers one, Trice, CLs, Kaiest, and Baos. The one that I had mentioned earlier was Butterfly Dagger Elma. The very fact that I didn't add this card is for the fact that there is these really annoying loops that you can do with this card that I don't know how they translate into SpeedDuels. I know Geoffrey is one of the cards that would be paired up with Elma, and typically it was just a way to infinitely activate a spell card. I don't particularly think we have anything that can abuse that, but for the sake of just playing it safe, I decided not to put it in the deck. If you think it's fine in the game, then feel free to add it in. But for the very fact that there's endless loops with this card, I just decided not to do it. As for the other cards in the deck, we have Exchange to go ahead and represent the one moment he had with Yugi where he gave Yugi the Silver Orichalcos to force him to activate it. We have My Body as a Shield, which is really emblematic of him as a character just because he did not for any reason want to have any Guardian monster in the graveyard. He wanted to protect them all because he has a very strong bond with them. We have Guardian's Treasure, which is a really cool card that he has in his deck, and it's extremely difficult to pull it off, but it has a really cool effect, and I think it's fine in SpeedDuels. And finally, of course, the Silver Orichalcos. As a whole, I was surprised just how much fun I had playing with Raphael's deck, and I hope you guys have just as much of a blast when you try it out for yourself. Alright then, so we were finally at the part where I had to start getting pretty creative with some of the characters and what strategies I should end up giving them. The next character we're going to be covering is Alistair, and out of the remaining characters of Dartz, Valon, and him, he was probably the easiest one to work with just because there is already an archetype that works pretty damn well for him and his backstory. and that is Machinas. So the Machina archetype works really well for him because if you remember from the anime, his backstory is essentially that because of Kaiba Corp and their military, he ended up losing his like little brother, I believe his family as well, and he was just a victim of war. And because of that, one of the archetypes that represents that very well is Machina, because they're all representative of like war machines and or like soldiers and stuff of that like. And the deck is very representative of that, and you can see that with a lot of the cards that I ended up choosing in the deck in itself. But before we break down the deck, let's take a look at the skills. So the main skill for the deck is Soldier of the Orichalcos, which reads, while you control Commander Corrington, the special summon of Machina Force can be done by banishing monster from your field and or graveyard. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Reveal one Machina Force in your hand and place it at the bottom of the deck, then draw one card. Or skill number 2, once per duel, you can discard one card, then add the Seal of Orichalcos from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Super simple skill, very representative of the skills that we ended up receiving in Battle City Finals, and it does exactly what it needs to do. We can search out the Seal of Orichalcos, which is super helpful for the deck, and also it fixes one of the big issues with Machina Force, which is that it is impossible to summon it out in Speed Duels unless you have a skill associated with that. And the fact that we were able to utilize our graveyard with Corrington as the card on field to pretty much facilitate it, feel like it worked really well. And I really like the way this skill ended up coming out, and the deck is already powerful enough that you didn't have to give him an overtuned skill either. As for the second skill, we have Terrors of War, which reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Once per duel, while you control a face-up Sign Soldier, Cyber Soldier of the Dark World, and Kinetic Soldier during your main phase, send your opponent's hand to the graveyard and destroy all cards your opponent controls. You cannot conduct the battle phase this turn. And don't worry, I'll get back to that in just one second. It sounds like a crazy effect, but there's a reason for that. Effect number 2 is once per turn, add one Sign Soldier, Cyber Soldier of Dark World, or Kinetic Soldier from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Now to address that first effect that is kind of crazy. So in the anime, Alistair had a card, and it's what was it called? It was called Soldier's Revolt, which is a trap card that has essentially that very effect, where if you control all 3 of these guys on the field, you can go ahead and do that very effect. I thought that was super cool if we tied that effect to a skill for 3, let's face it, pretty underwhelming monsters, with the exception of Kinetic Soldier, which actually did see a little bit of play. But nevertheless, the other 2 cards are kind of really bad. And I think it's really fair if you're able to establish all 3 of them on the field, you should be able to get a crazy effect like that. And it's a once per duel. You can't conduct your battle phase. Granted, you are in an extremely good position once you activate it, but I really like the way the skill came out, and it was pretty fun. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the deck itself. So starting off, we have Cyber Soldier of the Dark World, Sign Soldier, and Cyber Soldier. All these cards, again, representative of war, cards that he actually used in the anime, so they had to be additions to the deck. After that, we start getting into the Machinas, which is the creative part of the deck. We have Machina Force, which is the boss monster of the deck. Unfortunately, we don't have his actual boss monster, which was Air Fortress like Zygarde or something like that. Like, it's a big ass ship. I'm surprised we didn't actually get them in speed, like in the TCG, but I had to find another card that kind of represented that. Having this be the representative for that felt really fitting. And because we are playing Machina Force in the deck, we of course need the Corrington, Soldier, Sniper, and finally Defender. All these cards are just so iconic. They're some of the weaker Machina monsters, and I think they're really cool. After that, we have Gear Frame, because we already had him. Air Raider, again, we have a lot of stuff that is representative of war. So like a drone here, we have cannon, and we have Fortress. Now, Fortress is probably my most controversial pick for this deck, just for the very fact that it is a hell of a card. But my main argument for that is that given the direction SpeedDuel has taken, it is elevated to the point where we are reaching almost Edison-esque levels in the format, where decks become a bit more powerful, the ceiling gets increased bit by bit. And even if this card were to have been of trouble in the format, I feel you, by restricting it in some way, shape, or form, you could put a ceiling on it. But that's my main argument for it. It's really good, it's super Edison-esque, and if you know me, you know how much I love me some Edison. But again, all these cards were very fitting for the type of deck he's running. Alright, moving on to the spell and trap cards now. We have Emergency Provisions. He actually played this, and again, very fitting. Machina Armored Unit. We have a way of recurring our Machina monsters, and also it does help a lot with summoning out the force, because if you destroy one of the smaller pieces, you can summon out the other one from the deck. On to the trap cards, we have Jelly Cannon. It's a cannon, it's a defensive card, so I think it's very fitting. Machina Overdrive. It's a way to recover your Machina monsters once you summon out the force. Pulse Mines, you know, like a landmine for machine monsters, fits really well here. We have Cyber Summon Blaster. Even though it is a burn card. It is a fairly weak burn card. And again, we have another like card that is war-esque because it's like a kind of like a little cannon thing. We have Widespread Ruin. Alistair knows quite a bit about that. And we have Cemetery Bomb. Again, another burn card, but I feel like these are fairly low burn effects, so it should be fine. And lastly, we have the Seal of Orichalcos. I was a huge fan of the way this deck ended up coming out. I think it's super thematic for him as a character, and it fits him really, really well while still being pretty viable and a really fun strategy to pilot the way it's built. But again, love to hear your thoughts on this one. Okay, so now we're on to the last two characters. I don't know why, but I'm a bit nervous about sharing these two, just for the very fact that when I tell you I took creative liberties, I took creative liberties. Let's go ahead and save the boss for last. So next character up is Valon. Valon, as we all know, had the armor cards. Really cool cards. A lot of us wish we had actually received them in the TCG, but Konami for some reason decided, nah, we good, we don't want them. But it got very difficult to build the deck for him because there's a few archetypes that kind of worked for him. I thought Super Quantums were kind of interesting just because they're like Power Rangers, armor, kind of it, but they are an Xyz-based strategy, so we can't do that. We had Phantom Knights, a deck that revolves around like sentient pieces of armor. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, but again, it doesn't work as a deck because you can't use the Xyz monster for the archetype. I'm like, damn. We had Super Heavy Samurais, which again, another deck that has a lot of sentient pieces of armor, but it's a synchro-based strategy, and so I'm like, okay, whatever. We had Psyframes. Psyframes was a deck that one of my commenters ended up telling me about, and I thought that was a really cool strategy, but I didn't want to go ahead and completely rip off my commenter, and I went with my own direction. So enough stalling, let's take a look at what I did for Valon. And here it is. Okay, stick with me. I know Bujin is kind of a crazy pick for Valon, but I have my reasons. So the main reason I have Bujin as the deck to represent Valon is because the Bujin monsters are all sentient pieces of armor. They're all like spirits trapped in an armor piece, and these are all supposed to be representative of Valon as a character. And then we have all the Bujin monsters as the equips for the deck, because all these Bujin monsters specifically work with the Bujin monster that is the Beast Warrior, or the armor pieces. And this deck works completely fine without the Xyz monsters associated with them, so I thought that this is probably one of the best choices I have for a armor-based strategy that works without any outside help of like a skill or something else. But I'm super curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on this, like, as Polifine. Okay, the skill. Let's go and begin. The main skill of the deck is called Spiritual Armor, and it reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Shuffle one Bujin monster from your hand into the deck, then add one Beast Warrior Bujin monster from your deck to your hand, but you cannot summon or activate the effect of cards with that name for the rest of this turn. Second effect, once per duel, discard one card, then add one Seal of Orichalcos from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Really simple effect. It's a way to search out your Beast Warrior monsters, which are super important for the deck, and the deck kind of just needs them to be able to do anything. And the fact that you can't summon them out is a fair way of searching them out. As for the second skill, we have Full Armor Gravitation, which reads, once per turn during your main phase, you can use one of these skills. While the Seal of Orichalcos is face up on the field, but each can only be used once per duel. Effect number 1. Excavate the top 4 cards of your deck, then you can add one Bujin monster from your hand, then place the remaining cards at the bottom of the deck in any order. Skill number 2. Target one of your banished Bujin monsters and send that target to the graveyard. Again, super simple effects that only activate while the Seal of Orichalcos is face up in the field. Having a way to go ahead and search out for a piece you need is really cool, and the fact that you're tying it to the Seal of Orichalcos feels pretty fair. And also, some of your Bujin monsters are very difficult to recover just because they get banished for their effect, and having that be able to be targeted at some point during the duel feels very fair, and the fact that it's once per duel, I think we can live with that. Now let's break down the strategy in itself. Starting off, we have Bujin Mikasuchi, Yamato, and Arasuda. All these cards have their own unique effects, with Yamato being the best, just for the very fact that he gets the whole deck running. But essentially, the deck revolves around these 3 guys, and these are all supposed to be the armors of Valon. As for the assisting Bujins, we have Crow, Pavo, Raven, and Abyss as like the hand traps of the deck. I went ahead and omitted some of the other Bujin cards like Crane, just for the very fact that that card is ridiculous and it would be incredibly unfun in speed duels. So I went ahead and resorted to some of the ones that see the least I'm going to play, just because I think they all have their own unique and really fun effects. Then we have the graveyard based Bujins with Hare, Turtle, Quillen, Sinew, Boar, and finally Centipede. I like all these cards. They're all pretty fair and they're really easy to react to, just for the very fact that even though some of these do activate during the battle phase, you can still like attack them from the graveyard just because cards like DD Crow and Soul Release are in the game. So even if Boojins became problematic, they would be kind of easy to deal with. And the hand traps are fairly balanced, so even those cards that are harder to get, you don't have to worry about too much. Alright, now for the spell and trap cards. We have Fighting Spirit. Again, I still wanted to go ahead and associate it somehow with armor, so we have this. We have Monster Reborn. I'm realizing that I put this card in way too many decks. 4 Formation Tanky because the armor pieces are super important. Kinshido Spirit and Rare Gold Armor. Again, armor-based cards. We have Luminize, which works really well with the deck. Relief Monster, a way to go ahead and like shuffle out your monsters on the field. And I just like adding in new and interesting cards into the game that aren't represented in SpeedDuels, and this is kind of a cool one. This was one of my crazier picks with a character, but I thought it worked really well, and I think if you share some level of charitability with me, it makes sense conceptually. But again, what would you have done for Valon? I'm so curious. Alright then, so now for the last character of the set, that being Dartz, the main villain of the set. And Dartz was interesting. Just for the very fact that we do have access to some of his cards from the anime, but it's kind of limited to very few. And after that, you kind of have a hard time making a deck for him because he had a lot of really weird stuff that was just Orichalcos based. So finding comps to a lot of those cards was extremely difficult just because they don't really exist. So I had to take a different path, and I ended up taking the lore route for Dartz and made this. This right here is an Atlantean deck for Dartz because he is from Atlantis. Also because of the fact that the Great Leviathan was like the god that he served, I feel like having the Atlantean deck be a big part of his deck feels very fitting. We also have a monster in the deck that is supposed to be representative of that, kinda, at least loosely. And also the Leviathan in lore is a underwater creature. With all that being tied together, I'm like, Atlanteans work really well with this. So that's what I ended up doing. Before we go into the deck, let's go ahead and talk about both the skills that he has access to. So the main skill of the deck is Overwhelmed by the Orichalcos, which reads, shuffle 1 card from your hand into the deck, then add the Seal of Orichalcos from your deck to your hand. Once per turn during your main phase, while you control the Seal of Orichalcos, you can place 1 counter on it. The Seal of Orichalcos gains the following effects based on the number of counters on it. 1 counter. Once per turn, you can gain 500 life points for each monster you control. 3 counters. Once per turn, when an opponent monster declares a direct attack, remove 1 counter, destroy that attacking monster. 5 counters. Once per turn, when an opponent activates a spell or trap card, remove 1 counter, negate the activation. Alright, so if you're unfamiliar why this card has these effects, is because I tried incorporating the effects of the Seal of Orichalcos, the Seal of Orichalcos Dutros, and Tritros? Question mark? Anyway, in the anime, Dartz had multiple copies or variants of the Seal of Orichalcos that kind of stack upon each other, giving them all additional effects. And I thought that a cool way to go ahead and represent that is by giving the Seal of Orichalcos counters to be representative of the effects of the other levels of the Seal of Orichalcos. They all have their own unique effects, and I tried making them all somewhat balanced into a skill that worked really well. And I think that I did a pretty decent job. In practice, it worked really well. It was pretty fun to pilot, and I had a great time with it. Now for the second skill. And the second skill's name is the Power of the Great Leviathan, which reads, once per duel, you contribute 1 Orichalcos Shunoros, then special summon 1 Divine Serpent Ge from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then number 2, reveal 1 Orichalcos Shunoro in your hand and discard 1 card. Then add 1 normal water monster from your deck to your hand. And finally, skill number 3, once per duel, you can discard 1 card, then add 1 the Seal of Orichalcos from your deck or graveyard to your hand. I really like the way this skill ended up coming out as well. I think it's a really fun gimmick tying these two monsters that have anime effects that tie each other together as well. And I also like the fact that with this skill, you are forcing your opponent to attack and to get, and that's not fun to do whatsoever. As a whole, this was a really cool way of associating all this stuff together, and I like the way it came out a lot. Alright then, now let's go and talk about the monsters of the strategy. So first off, we have Divine Serpent Ge and Orichalcos Shunoros. These two cards work individually, separate from the deck, just because Ge already has an effect that allows you to special summon him fairly easily. And Shunoros, well, you do need Vanillas in order to summon him out, but the deck does have access to them. So, alright, now for the others. We have Sea Serpent Warrior of Darkness and Atlantean Pikeman, 2 cards that work really well in the deck because they are 2 vanilla waters and they're both sea serpents, which is is going to be important for a monster in the deck. Which, speaking of, we have Poseidra, the Atlantean dragon. This is the comp that I had for the Great Leviathan for the deck. It's a big, massive sea serpent monster that kind of works as the boss for the deck. He has a great effect, really cool card, and I like this card a lot. As for the remaining Atlantean monsters, we have legendary Atlantean Tridon, which is another monster that allows you to special summon the Poseidra, but in order to use this, you need to have 2 sea serpent monsters on your field in order to activate the effect. After that, we have Atlantean Attack Squad, Atlantean Marksman, and oh, I almost forgot, Atlantean Heavy Infantry. I like these 3 cards a lot. This gets big, this has the ability to pop stuff if he gets destroyed, and this allows you to double summon Atlanteans. I think the effects are fairly simple, not too crazy, and as long as we don't have too many other cards in the deck, I feel like there's a good power level for them. There's not too much. After that, we have just like water good stuff with Armed Sea Hunter. We have the Dragon Dwelling in the Deep. Again, another card that I like a lot, another Sea Serpent. And finally, Spined Gilman, which makes your guys really beefy. And I kind of feel like a bad guy deck should feel overwhelming in attack potency, but as a whole, I like the way this all ended up coming out. Alright, now for the spell and trap cards, and this is where I tried getting really creative just because I like adding cards into SpeedDuels that are a bit unorthodox and would never see play like in the TCG. So having them in the game would be kind of cool. The first one is Anti, and this just feels like a complete bad guy card, just for the effect that it just has the vibe. I don't know if it's just me. This card essentially just allows both players to reveal a card in their hand, and person with a weaker monster has to discard that card and then takes damage for that card. Really cool card. It feels like a bad guy card, and I think it fits the deck really well because it has some beefy monsters. Next up, we have Seal of Ancients. This card's not great. It's pretty fucking bad, but it has Seal, it looks ancient, and it kind of just fits Dartz, so it's only here for aesthetic purposes. Next up, we have Soul Taker. The Silvery Calcos take souls, so this card fits. After that, we have Shield Crush in case your opponent plays too defensively and you have to deal with it. Next up, we have the trap cards. We have Damage Gate. Again, another card that I didn't even know existed, but after I was rummaging through all the trap cards in the game, this one seemed really cool. It essentially allows you to summon a card from the graveyard based on the damage you took, and you have some weak monsters like Infantry, which has a fairly low threshold to summon him out because he has no attack points, so any damage can summon this out from the graveyard, so it's kind of cool. We then have Mirror Mail. This card is kind of out there, but it's supposed to be representative of the ritual monsters that Dartz summoned. They all kind of mimic the attack points of the monsters they attack, and this card allows you to have any monster of yours to mimic the attack of an opponent's monster. You know what? I tried my best. I'm trying to make anime references here. Next up, we have Poseidon Wave because it's the water deck, fits really well, and we have Sea Serpent, so it's fitting here. And finally, we have Seal of Wickedness. Technically, it's back row, like it's a way to deal with back row, but again, evil character vibes, Seal in its name, Seal of Calcos. It fits. It's not great, but it fits. But yeah, this is pretty much the deck for Dartz. I kind of liked it. I kind of fucked with this deck. This was probably the deck that I had the most fun playing. But again, give me your thoughts on all the characters. Who was your favorite? Who was your least favorite? What you have done different with some of the characters? What are your thoughts? I love to hear all your thoughts. I love engaging with you guys and all that jazz. All right, now, if all you want to see was the character decks, this is where the video will end. But if you're interested in seeing what else we have for the miscellaneous and finally how you can use these cards, actually, scratch that. Let me show you exactly how you can get access to these cards if you want to play with them. If you are on Dueling Book, all you have to do is once you're on Dueling Book, all you have to do is on Card Pool, just go to all custom cards, and in the description just type in my name. If you look up my name, no space, and search, you will find every single one of my skills that I've used, like from any of the sets, from the Duelist Kingdom one, GX, and now Waking the Dragons. All the skills are here listed for you. You have full access to them. You can use them, you can copy them, do whatever you want with them. But yeah, that's the easiest way to get access to these skills. But if you want to make your own proxies, there are websites online that allow you to do so. All you really have to do is just Google custom card creator, and you'll find stuff and resources that will allow you to do that. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and actually take a look at the miscellaneous cards if you are interested. Alright then, so for the miscellaneous cards, I tried incorporating cards that were either associated in some way, shape, or form with some of the characters in the set already, but also tying it to some of the characters from that arc in itself as well, alongside doing that same thing with the skills. So let's take a quick look at what I did with that. Alright then, so starting off in the miscellaneous, we have, you can see it already, But we have the legendary knights. We have Critias, Hermos, Timaeus, and Legend of Heart. I feel like all these cards had to be represented in the miscellaneous just because we couldn't really tie them into any of the character decks without having the whole strategy revolve around these cards. Additionally, we also do have Timaeus, the Knight of Destiny. You don't really need a skill in order to activate Legend of Heart because the summoning condition is fairly simple. It's just tedious, but I didn't think you needed a skill specifically for this. But there is a skill for each of the legendary dragons. We'll talk about those in just a second. For the rest of the cards in the set, we have representation for Yugi himself with Dark Burning Attack, Berserk Soul, and Multiply. For Joey, we do have Paladin of Dark Dragon alongside Dark Dragon Ritual. Two cards that I feel like we should have just gotten for Red Eyes eventually, but like we never got, so we have him here. We have some representation for Weevil, Rex, and Mai as well. We have Queen Butterfly Danis and Skull Marked Ladybug. This is probably the closest comp we have to like what was like Poisonous Wasp or Moth or whatever the hell Weevil was using. We have Harpy Oracle and Harpy's Pet Baby Dragon for Mai. I like Oracle a lot just for the very fact that it's another piece of legacy support for the Harpy Lady Sister strategy. We do have Rex Raptor support here as well with Kaito Terra alongside Hornsaurus. These two cards work really well with each other and they need each other. Dartz had Time Eater. I don't think he summoned it, at least I don't recall. Raphael had Monster Reincarnation. We didn't have room for it in the actual deck, so we have it here instead. We have Manju the 10,000 Hands. I figured that eventually Konami would want to print this card, so I feel like it would be a good part here. And finally, we have Herald of the Abyss as like one of the big generic cards for the set that kind of works for any deck, and it's just overall really, really powerful. All right, and for the final 4 skills, first one, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. We have the Unlikely Unity, which reads, while the sea level recalculus is face up on the field, insect monsters are treated as dinosaur monsters and vice versa, while they are face up on the field or graveyard. Once per turn during your main phase, you can activate one of these skills. Once per duel, you can banish 2 dinosaur and or insect monsters from your hand and or graveyard, especially with 1 level 7 or higher dinosaur or insect monster from your hand or deck ignoring its summoning conditions. Second effect, once per duel, discard 1 card and then add the sea level recalculus from your deck or graveyard to your hand. I figured this was like a really fun and goofy skill in case you wanted to build a Weevil / Rex deck. I'm curious to see what you guys could possibly build with this, but I'm sure there was something there, and I thought it was just too good of a chance to build something for them, and I think it's pretty fun. I didn't get a chance to test it out, but I'm sure it's fun. As for the legendary dragons, this is something I thought was pretty cool that I did for them. So first things first, they have their default effect where they can fusion summon their basic effect as default, so you don't have to play the legendary dragon card in your deck. But if you do, there is an additional effect, which reads, once per duel, you contribute 1 Blue Eyes White Dragon, and if you do, special summon 1 legendary knight Critias from your hand, deck, or graveyard, ignoring its summoning condition. So I ended up making this skill so each character, Yugi, Joey, and Kaiba, can play their designated legendary knight in any deck they are playing these legendary dragon cards, and I feel like that's really, really cool if you could do it like that. And yeah, same thing with Joey. Joey, the card you're tributing is Red Eyes Black Dragon, and for Yugi, the card you're tributing is Dark Magician. And I feel like it's like a really neat way of incorporating these cards into their decks without having to jump through like the hoops of activating the Legends of Heart to go ahead and make this happen. That's pretty much the whole set, guys. In the comment section below, share with me all your thoughts you have regarding the set. And grand total, it was a 200 card set with 20 skills. This took way longer than I thought it would, but honestly, this is probably the set that I am the most proud of. I spent a lot of time, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I do have plans for more content regarding this set in the future. I just have to get a lot of the stuff set up, but let's just say that I am hoping to go ahead and assemble a little tournament for this set and kind of just show the results to you guys on in a video. But for now, it's something in the works, and I am really, really excited for it. But with that, guys, I've been Topsy. If you guys did end up enjoying today's video and would like to support the channel, then leaving a like and subscribe to the channel is the best way of doing so. Again, in the comment section below, share with me all your thoughts. I enjoy all the comments. I like interacting with you guys. I like all the feedback you guys give me, and I'm sure I went ahead and made some very questionable choices with some of the characters, but again, love interacting with you guys. Let me know what you guys liked, what you didn't, and all that jazz. Alright, and with that, have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.